All right, and welcome back to the Movie Bros podcast. I'm Hayden, and my brother here is Duncan.
This week we're talking about the Pinocchio. No, not the animated original that you might remember from your childhood, but
The
the 2022
2022 Guillermo del
version.
Toro
Yes.
version. Sorry, we're,
Uh,
we're, we're going through a different recording setup here, so if we talk over each other, we apologize.
and so it stars Tom Hanks, Luke Evans, Finn Wolfhard, Ewan McGregor, Kate Blanchett, Christoph Waltz, Ron Perlman. The cast is pretty stacked. I mean, you've probably known a lot of those different people from a lot of different movies, but even Del
Um,
Toro himself, I mean, he's known for Hellboy, Pacific Rim, Shape of Water, Nightmare Alley, Crimson Peak.
all good
So
things. The
there's
man doesn't have a bad
tons of
movie in his
stuff.
library.
I don't know. I don't know.
Just a small question here. You said Tom Hanks.
Yes.
He's not in this movie.
You want to put some money on that?
You are thinking of the Disney one, where he plays Geppetto.
Yeah,
That's
isn't
that's that's the Robert Zemeckis version.
who plays Geppetto in this?
David Bradley. He plays Filch in Harry Potter, the
Oh,
custodian guy who
whoops.
talks to his cat.
Okay, because I was looking at this, I was like, all
I
right.
was like, if that's Tom Hanks, he does a great voice impression of David
I
Bradley.
literally wrote that because I was like, wow, it doesn't even sound like Tom Hanks. This is fantastic.
It might be fun to watch the Tom Hanks version after this because I have heard some car crash reviews of that.
I've heard it was rough. Yeah.
So, the David Bradley version that we're going to be talking about today,
The
2002, and
David.
is stop motion animated.
What? We're not talking about that.
Yes, we are.
Hayden, we're talking about the Del Toro 2022.
That's what I just said,
No, it
which
wasn't.
stars David Bradley.
You didn't say Del Toro.
I
You said
know.
2002, not 2022.
That's what. Oh, okay, so either you can't hear me, or my mic is garbling. I distinctly said 2022. In any event,
Okay.
we're moving it
Okay.
past that.
Anyway, so yes, that's what we're talking about.
So I did not realize going into this was going to be a musical.
That was my first entry was musical? Question mark?
Well, sort of musical. I'm not sure there's enough songs to actually call it one, although there
It's a
are
musical, dude.
definitely characters that run around and sing, and I was not
Well,
expecting that.
well, it's the same way that like La La Land is a musical, but it's not every line is a song.
That's true. That's true. What did you think of the music in this? Was it okay? Like
I like the
not the
music.
score, but like the songs that they sing.
Oh, okay. I like the score. I don't know if I love the music. If that makes
See,
sense.
I've had that my son song that he has like the the
Yes.
the whole flashback thing at the start. I've had that stuck in my head for like a day now.
I
But
don't
I
know.
don't know if I love it or I think it might just be an earworm.
I just couldn't connect with it. I don't know. I even wrote this later on, but even not just the music, but like I I like this. I don't know if I love it.
That's that that's what I wrote down. I said that I liked it, I didn't love it, and I don't know if I would recommend it to especially children.
Well, I
Because
said
I don't know that they're going to get as much out of this as adults will
yes.
because it's not like I mean don't get me wrong, there are fun moments, but it's not like
No.
fun for a kid.
Well, like the sadistic burning at the stake. Like I'm like Jesus, dude.
Yeah, that
Um,
was a little much. Although to be fair, when you model your Volte character to literally have hair that looks like devil horns,
yes.
which Christoph Waltz, please give him all the awards. I love that man's voice. He's a great actor.
I said I would recommend it, but I feel like it had to be a pretty specific person.
Yes, yes. Like you would have to like Del Toro stuff because this is him to a T.
Well, it is and it isn't. I didn't feel the he has a really good way of like building a world that you really get immersed in, even from like not yes, obviously Hellboy or Hellboy 2 especially, but even Nightmare Alley felt really like a place. And this did
He,
not.
he
Maybe
he has a very good knack for making complete productions where everything fits
sure, but
together.
like I don't know if it was just because it was stop go, but I didn't feel that. And maybe because it's so much more of a downer story comparatively, but I'm like, oh, I do feel that it's complete. Like in Fantastic Mr. Fox, it does feel that way.
Yeah, I think it's harder to connect with something if you're sad, especially
Maybe.
especially if it's animated.
Yeah, potentially. The whole bit with the poop, I'm like, dude, that
That
I don't
that
know.
that felt like it
Mm,
was not him. So this was actually a co-direction. So he is the director, writer, and is on as producer, but he had someone else handling just because there was so much work going on. He has a second director that he works with, whose name escapes me, and that felt so out of place with the tone of the rest of the movie. I wonder if it wasn't interjected from that guy.
maybe. Yeah, just there's a couple of things like that where I'm like, oh, this just doesn't fit. Uh,
I would also say,
I
speaking of the cast, without looking if you've written it down, tell me who Kate Blanchett voices.
She is the like blue.
No,
Uh, yes,
that's Tilda Swinton. Kate Blanchett voices the frickin' monkey. Why would you get Kate Blanchett to voice a monkey?
that seems kind of like a waste.
Right? So Netflix also has this like little behind the scenes thing where they do interviews and
Yeah, I
talk up their own
skimmed a little bit
project.
of it. Yeah.
So towards the end, they're like, "Hey, why'd you take the role of the monkey?" And she's like, "Well, we were shooting Nightmare Alley at the time." And I was like, "Oh, what else are you working on?" He's like, "Well, I have this long running project of Pinocchio." It's like, "Fine, great. I would love to voice something in it." And he's like, "Well, we only have voice lines for a monkey who it doesn't have dialogue." And she's like, "Cool, I'll do it." I feel like you probably should have turned her down
Okay.
because like you could have just synthesized all of those noises.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a waste. But I mean, that's fine. I don't really
I mean, it
care.
it is. It just made me think like how much of the budget went to paying Kate Blanchett for this, where you could have maybe fixed your water animation because
Oh,
that
see,
was real jarring towards the end.
some of it looked cool.
I think a lot of the bits that have to do when they're in the belly of the weird looking monster fish thing, a
Yes.
lot of a lot of the animation that is the CG water really clashes with the style of the stop motion, and I feel like it takes me out of that moment a lot.
I suppose. I did think that
So,
like some of the
sorry, go right
voice
ahead.
acting, like Ron Perlman, man, his voice is fucking awesome. Just on
Oh, I mean,
anything,
one of
like
my
yeah.
favorite things to do when you're watching a Del Toro production is okay, how long does it take until Ron Perlman shows up in some fashion? He is in all of them.
Well, even if he is or isn't, I'm just saying like any movie he's in, it doesn't have to be Del Toro. Just
I mean, he has
I
a
don't know if
great
it's like
bass heavy
yeah,
voice. It's really
he
cool.
just has a good bass heavy voice. I was like, I wrote Ron Perlman's voice is so like tell me to do things like call me to battle, I'll fucking go. That's the vibe that I get. That's all.
I mean, he literally voices stuff in Halo 2.
Yes, that's what made me think of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Uh, it was only 2 hours. I don't know. It
It
definitely felt like
felt longer.
it felt like three. Like it just kind of man, it
Like
really drug its heels.
it drug its heels, especially in the middle. Like the whole sequence where they're at the military youth camp. You could take it out and the
Yeah.
story would be the same.
Yes.
And I feel like the animation on Candlewick, like the kid's face, as well as Ron Perlman's character, because they have such smooth models. There's not a whole lot you can move on their plasticine faces to give them expressions. They looked so expressionless and emotionless. It really reminded me of the Team America dolls, if you know what that is.
I know what it is. I've never seen it.
It is South Park style stuff. If you're not into that, which I am not really, to be honest, you probably will not enjoy it.
Eh. Eh.
It wasn't my bag. I've never rewatched it.
Gotcha.
So something that I have written
Well,
down is
think
that
I yes,
Geppetto seems very old to be a father, even in the first place with Carlo. Like he's balding, he's got white
yes,
hair.
yes,
Did he
yes.
adopt this boy? Does he have a mother? Is it ever mentioned or explained what happens?
No, I don't believe it's ever explained. Ugh. No, and like I don't.
I
I'm
mean, I guess for the
the
story it
weird.
doesn't need to be, but it just made me think.
No, yeah, it doesn't. Sure, sure. Uh, and for a movie that took so long to make, I feel like they would have so much time to like really. No, I mean, they've had the time to go over their storyboard enough to figure out where it was dragging, where it was lacking. I don't know.
So
It
yeah,
felt.
this movie reportedly took 15 years to make just because stop motion is such a
Hmm.
laborious project.
Yes, yeah, that was the bit
And
from the
I feel
behind the
like the
scenes. I was like, oh
reason
Jesus.
why I feel like the reason why even in all that time they never edit it down into more of a snappier version is Del Toro doesn't do anything Del Toro doesn't want to do. I get the feeling
Sure.
that even if he has editors, he's the one editing. Him and Clint Eastwood have that problem.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I don't know. Just
So
after watching this, I was like, man, there's other either stop go or just general animations. I'm like, oh, I would just so much prefer watching this. Like, I would have so much of a better experience. Not again, I'm not trying to shit on it. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff, but just I don't
I
know.
would
It
say
didn't. It did not do it
I
for me.
enjoyed looking at this more than I enjoyed like watching it. Like if, I would buy this as like an art book, but I don't
Hmm.
think I would want to rewatch this. There are other stop motion things, specifically from Leica, that I would rather watch. Like I would rather you watch Coraline or Paranorman
Hmm.
or Box Trolls, something like that. I think those have quicker moving movies just in general. There are more interesting things going on. I think going into this, you most people are going to have some pre-existing knowledge of the Pinocchio story, and
Sure.
this switches out so much of it for the 1940s Italy aesthetic that it's almost not the same storyline anymore. It's almost not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I even wrote down. I was like, I just don't. I mean, I literally, besides knowing that when he lies, his nose grows. I don't remember anything from the original. Which maybe that's a good
So
thing.
in the
Maybe it's not. But
original,
just.
so yes, his nose grows in when he lies, and he is technically like semi-immortal in the book, but that's kind of where the similarities end. In the book, he is like kidnapped to the circus. He doesn't go there willingly. And then
Hmm.
when he tries to leave, he's sent to like Purgatory Island, although I think they call it something different, and they get turned into like donkeys, and there's like slave labor, and it's very weird. Not that this version isn't also weird, but it's a different flavor.
Hmm. Yeah, I
So
mean,
speaking of the animation,
yeah.
what did you think of it?
Um, I, I liked it, but I
So what I
wouldn't
have
say
written
that
down.
like.
Sorry, go right ahead.
Go ahead. No, no, you're fine.
So what I have written down is that this isn't the best stop motion animation I've ever seen, but it's not the worst. Like for me, there's a level of choppiness that needs to be in this sort of animation to justify it being there. Because if it's just as smooth as like a Pixar movie, why are you going to all that effort? So I can appreciate that it did stutter a little bit, and you could tell that it was a physical thing being moved around. But I've seen it done better, mostly by 3D printed rapid replacement animation, and this is a lot more wire armatures and and rubber bodies. It's not as streamlined a process.
Hmm. I don't know if it was because the story was taking so long, but I think when I think of like things like Chicken Run, like the first one where the story is super tight because there's not a lot of story. It's very
Absolutely.
straightforward, and you're going through it so quickly, you don't really have a chance to like stop and like, oh, how does this piece of clay look? This because it took so long. I was like, oh, I can. I don't know. This may not be as smooth, or I don't. It didn't feel like I there was too much time to look at shit almost. If that makes
I
any
I
kind of
I
sense.
do agree that without exception, the entire movie could have moved quicker. I don't think there's a single scene that could have been cut down a little bit. I do
Yeah,
think it's smart that Pinocchio is actually the only um, non clay figure. Like he is entirely 3D printed replacement, and that's so that you can get every single wood mark and form the exact same every single time. Like
sure.
I, that's smart to me. But the rest of them, the puppets range from looking good to looking really questionable.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple that I glanced. I was like, ooh, ooh, buddy. But granted, again, it's nothing that I could ever, not maybe not ever do. Obviously, with practice and training and education, whatever. But like for a professional studio, it's sometimes I'm like, oh, if I compare this to something, albeit maybe more quote unquote simple, but like Wallace and Gromit, I'm like, oh,
If I had to
I don't know,
choose
I
between
definitely
watching a
prefer it.
new Wallace and Gromit and watching this, I would watch a new Wallace and Gromit hands down without question.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Like
Yes, the
I
content is
love
going to
Del
be maybe
Toro. I
more
love his eye.
up.
I love his eye for artistic stuff. But this was kind of underwhelming because I had heard such good things about this before going in. I'm
Well,
like, I'm
it did,
expecting this to be
didn't it
great.
win?
This won
Did it?
4 Oscars.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was like, didn't it win a bunch of shit? I'm like, I kind of
This
get it, but
this
like,
won 4 Oscars. Yeah.
I'd have to like. I'm curious to see if I look. I don't really want to do it right now, but if I looked and what it went against and won against, I'm like, oh,
Oh,
was it really better?
probably the Pixar movie of the year, and then whatever Disney
Yeah, I
decided to
mean
put out.
that stuff. I mean, maybe that's a topic for another day, but like that stuff has definitely gone downhill. I feel like in the last little bit.
I mean,
So
we can have that be a
that's
topic
fair.
for today if you like,
Sure. I mean, I just
because
think
I
of
do
all
agree. I
the
think Pixar and Disney's commitment to making cutesy blob, fleshy characters in different
yeah,
outfits for every single movie is really pushing it.
yeah. I mean, kind of lumps them more into with God, is that Illumination or DreamWorks? Whichever. I think it's Illumination that kind of does the same thing, where
Illumination, the people
the
behind the
style is
Minions,
very similar. Well, yeah, I know
absolutely.
they do the Minions, but like they do. I think I saw one that was like Migration or something that just looked like
Oh,
super fucking
I
generic.
saw the trailers. I'm like, this looks like it's for 5-year-olds. I'm gonna pass.
Or there's like there's another one where is again also birds, like the one that deliver babies. I can't even think of the name now.
Storks.
Storks or whatever, yeah, or
Yeah,
Boss Baby and all that shit. Like
they
just
made two
not.
of those and a TV
Yes,
show.
yes. Alec
And
Baldwin,
what
what are you
blows my
doing?
mind about that is Hans Zimmer chose to score all three of those things on purpose.
He's a complicated man. You know, all geniuses are.
I mean,
Um,
are they blackmailing him?
there's a lot of
Like,
shady Hollywood shit in there, dude. I don't know.
are the Hollywood elites showing up in their red robes and saying, Hans Zimmer, to atone for your debt, you have to score 3 Boss Baby projects? And he's standing there on his knees, like crying, like, "Oh God, please no! I just want to make Dune." And they're like, "No, you have to."
I mean, if you stack up those three movies against his other plethora, I think he's still doing all right.
I mean, if you have a tour named after yourself and you're selling out stadiums, I'm thinking he's probably fine.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like the last interesting, even looking animated movie.
Probably Spider Verse,
Spider Verse, yeah, for sure.
just because there's so much shit going on in that movie visually.
Yeah, I mean you're going there for the visuals. That's kind of the whole deal.
I would throw Tintin and Rango just for finally perfecting like photo real but not ugly animation.
Hold on, I'm pulling up my letterboxd and I'm gonna go to just animation to see what's in here.
I got to
Let's
do that
see.
later
Yeah,
today.
Spider Verse. Oh, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was actually very cool
I
looking.
loved that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. That's a great
Yes.
movie. Like I went in,
Uh,
like I saw that in theaters and went in with like no expectations. Had a great time.
did you see Luca? Luca.
The Bean Smiles faces really put me off from watching it. So no,
The that part I totally understand. The
it just
actual, I mean, the
it
story was
screamed.
nice, and the water
It
was
just
freaking awesome. The water was
I,
very cool.
I did see the water animation. The water animation's like, oh, that's so nice, but the rest of it like seems, oh, you want to watch Steven Universe in 3D animation? Oh, you don't?
Oof,
Too bad,
yikes!
because that's
What
all
else is
that
on
face
here?
animation screams to me.
Again, I think I've said this before, but you should like the animation was not quite anime, not quite like surreal, but Scavenger's Reign. It's on HBO Max.
It's
Uh,
it's in my list. I just have to
it's
find time to do it.
it's or Marcel the Shell with shoes on. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have.
That I mean, it's 90 minutes. It's an easy watch.
It looks
Uh,
fun.
yeah, you know, I think it was a really interesting idea,
So wasn't
and
that? So correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Marcel entirely shot physically and then he's just animated into the scenes?
your guess is as good as mine.
That's a good point. So why don't we circle back to Pinocchio? We can talk about Marcel later.
Oh, yeah, and the animated. If we could do a whole episode on just animated shit, yeah. So about Pinocchio, what else
So
you
one
got?
thing I have written down is so this is scored by Alexandre Desplat, and you would also know him from Fantastic Mr. Fox
Hmm.
and Harry Potter, the last two Harry Potters, and just a ton of different stuff. The guy is super versatile, but always comes out sounding great. And he also
Well,
shows up in nearly all of Del Toro's movies.
I've also noticed though that like there's only so many like working composers. I feel like there's like maybe a
It's a
dozen,
problem.
and they do everything, and there's not that much of a diversity there. Like you're either
I
getting
agree. I've had this
Hans, you're
feeling
getting
for a
Michael
while.
Giacchio. I mean, there's only so many options.
Giacchino, but
Yeah,
potato, 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 Giacchio, Gacchino. You know
yeah.
these
All
things.
right. Okay, but I'm just
You're
just
right,
saying, like,
and it's a problem.
yes, but I also feel like that's a pretty tough field
I
to
would assume it's
actually.
very competitive. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And once you corner that market, like Hans has done, I mean, that's kind of hard to. Yeah. Well, what's his? The guy
It's
who
kind of hard
did
to be unseated once you become a household name, and a lot of these people,
exactly.
to lessening degrees, are people that are known by their names at this point and not by their music.
What's the guy who worked with Hans Zimmer, who's like his
Tom
uh
Hulkenberg,
yes, thank you, the one who did
also
Zack
known as
Snyder's.
Junkie XL.
Yes.
He's done Fury Road. He's done
Oh,
Batman
I
v
didn't know that.
Superman.
I knew
He's
he did
done
Batman v
Alita
Superman. I didn't
Battle
know he.
Angel.
I
He's
saw
done the
part of
first
that on the
Deadpool
TV
movie.
the other day. I saw part of Alita on the TV. Wow, did not look great.
So I
Oof,
don't want this to become a thing.
oof,
Um,
rough.
I love that movie, and
It
I'll
looks
not hear a bad
so
word against it.
bad. It looks so
I own
bad.
it. I own
Do
the
you
little
really?
minifig of her. She sits on my bookshelf.
Oh God, like the animation on the bad guy with the mohawk is fucking awful, dude.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
hush. First of all, um,
Either way, that's not what we're talking about. I'm just saying, yes,
Yes, there
the
is a
composer has
shortage
done a
of
lot of
new
other
names
things.
in composing.
And like, as long as they're making cool shit, I don't have a ton of problem with it. But like, I would like it to be able to be like, oh, there's a new person doing this, instead of
So
like, oh, this is a great score, but it's the same person you kind of already know.
yeah, I mean, I love Michael Giacchino, and also he shows up in every
Giacchio,
single
yeah.
Marvel movie, every single boy. He shows up in every single Marvel movie, every single Pixar movie. I, the dude needs less work.
Yeah. I think the first thing I remember his stuff in was Star Trek.
Yeah,
I think that
either
was the
that or
first thing I heard
Incredibles.
him in. Yeah, I didn't really realize it was him though. Like that was the first time when I was like, oh, this is this person.
That's fair.
At
That's
least
fair.
in my brain, yeah.
So you brought up Hellboy 2. So what from that movie did you notice in Pinocchio? Like
Well, I didn't. I mean,
specifically
besides the
character design.
cast, what do you mean?
So at the end of Hellboy 2, spoilers or whatever, when he like has been stabbed by the magic spear and the angel of death with the eyes on the
Oh,
wings
yes,
comes
with the
over,
eyes. Yes, yes. I did
and
think of that. Yes,
immediately I'm like, okay, wow, so this is just the nice version of the angel of death.
yes,
Like Del Toro, I know you have your obsessions. Like not everything fits with
dude.
everything.
Eyes, eyes. Just put eyes on everything.
Eyes on wings, eyes on wings.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool looking, but I was definitely like, I feel like this has been used before.
And also it didn't seem to fit with Italy. Like it feels Hispanic now that I've seen it in so many of his stuff.
Yeah,
I
it's
I
hard
did
to be
love
a. It's kind of hard to
the
be a very prominent Hispanic director where you push a more
well, you're
Hispanic narrative,
yeah.
and then you try to do something that's not Hispanic. You're like, oh, why is this not set in Mexico? Kind of thing.
Well, it's like anything that Robert Rodriguez makes. Eventually, Machete is going to show up.
Oh, Trejo, yeah.
Danny Trejo, yes. Like even on
What?
the episodes of Mandalorian he made, he shows up as the guy who owns the big like cage monster. I forget what it's called.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I what was I watching? Oh, I caught like 10 minutes of Con Air, and he's in it,
Oh, you mean a
and
great American classic?
uh,
Even
they were
for
doing like
just Nicolas Cage's hairpiece. Come on,
it's like God, has his hair ever looked not
normal? No.
not weird? Yeah, I don't. Either way, it's just I saw Danny Trejo, and even then, this was I think that was the '90s, probably the '90s. So that's 30 years ago, and he still looks
I mean, I think
like
he was
Danny Trejo.
born
Like it's
looking
just
like a weathered rubber glove or a
yeah,
weathered um, leather glove, I should say.
yes. But I was also thinking about Hellboy 2 is like I just think of like the troll market and how in like you could like step into that. And again, maybe it's just because
It's such
that's
a complete
real and it's
experience.
not. Well, again, and I think just for me personally, I think it's because it is real versus like it's an animated, like the town or even like the carnival or not the carnival, like the circus or whatever. Like, oh, I couldn't like immerse myself in it if that makes sense.
I felt like the circus felt small. Like it was supposed to have all these people in it, and then it's this
It
one
was
tiny
yeah, it
little
was
tent.
really and it was also really like they didn't. I mean, they occasionally showed other people, but it was really just the dude, his monkey, and Pinocchio, and that was it.
Like they
Like it
would
was supposed to be a
sometimes show a
circus,
crowd, but like
but
was
not
like what
really for
six
any like
people,
yeah, yeah. The crowd of kids where it was like 5 kids. Yeah,
and somehow he's stacking this huge like giant like stack of gold coins when they're on the boat. Like I don't know if
mm-hmm.
the math is math in there, my guy.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Mussolini showing up. Do you think we needed it? Do you think the story needed it?
Again, I think this was a little overstuffed. I think they probably could have trimmed the fat quite a bit and all over the place.
We probably could have done without the poop song. You're right.
I mean, yes, yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I think they could have just made this. I think, especially to showcase the animation,
I mean,
or
I
at
feel like
least
that's
it's just
100% why this was made. I think Del Toro wanted to make a stop motion movie and just picked a character to form it around. I feel like
yes,
a lot of this was made because he wanted to show off that, look, I can make a stop motion movie too.
yeah. Which like
Because a
again,
lot of this doesn't feel like it goes together.
and like I still gave it a fairly good score. Like I would still say it's a good movie, but I wouldn't like. I didn't
I didn't
love
love
it.
it. I
Yeah,
would watch it if it was on TV somewhere, but I wouldn't seek it out again.
yeah. If someone's like, "Hey, let's watch a movie," I'm going to put on Pinocchio. I'm like, "All right, okay." But if they're like, "Oh, what do you want to watch?" That wouldn't be probably in anywhere in my top 100.
No, no. I mean, I will probably listen to the music from it in my spare time because it's got charming music, but I I didn't love it as much as I thought I would have.
Yeah, see that actually after watching this, I was like, "Oh, I didn't love this." But I'm like, I wonder if Hayden is even going to love this because this seems like more up your alley. But even so, I'm like,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
you're right. This is more up my alley, but I enjoyed Nightmare Alley more than I enjoyed this.
I really enjoyed Nightmare Alley. Like I
Well,
think I
I
watched
was
that
trying to make an
twice.
alley pun, as you would.
Okay, okay, all right. Either way, yes, I enjoyed that as well.
I I I really wanted to love this. Like I follow a lot of the art directors and concept artists on social media, and like all the images that I saw looked really cool. And I think that's how I would recommend this movie is if you want to see something that is visually very interesting, this is not a terrible choice. But if you want to watch like an all the way good movie that you can have a good time watching, I don't know if I would pick it.
Yeah, probably not.
So you mentioned a
Okay.
rating. I have
Yeah,
down for me, I have like 3.5 out of 5 ish.
that's what I wrote. I wrote 3.5.
Like I think there's a lot of extra that doesn't need to be there and it slows it down. The
Sure.
stuff that is good, but it feels like it takes forever.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me see what I officially wrote. I liked it. I didn't love it. Del Toro was so amazing at creating worlds that you can really feel immersed in. And this was beautiful, yes, but I couldn't connect. I don't know why it's different than, say, Fantastic Mr. Fox, but it is. Stacked cast, years of dedication, but something was missing. And if something is just
I
less
think
content
I
or
think
a
it's harder to
brighter
connect to this
a
because
brighter
of this.
story,
I think it's two things. I think the story needed to be a bit quicker, it needed to be brighter, and I think they needed to animate faces differently because the characters themselves really struggle to emote a lot.
yeah, I was like, okay, we've watched it. Don't really need to rewatch it. And if people watch this, I'll be like, okay, you saw this. Let me recommend you some other things that you'll probably enjoy more.
Yes, I feel like
Like,
if like pretty much any other Del Toro property, if you enjoyed the visuals from this, literally pick
sure,
any of them and you will get that same enjoyment but with a deeper and richer story.
yeah, I would say either that or if you want something of the same like animation style ish, but you also want something maybe a little more lighthearted. I mean, yeah, go with the classic. Watch Wallace and Gromit. Watch Chicken Run. Uh,
Box Trolls, Paranorman.
I still haven't seen Box. I mean, it's never been high on my list, to be perfectly honest. But
I mean, we can get around to it. It's not my favorite Leica
eh,
property either, but it's fun. You get Ben Kingsley delivering some great villain lines.
okay. Ooh,
As
speaking of cast, before I forget, uh, Ewan McGregor just has he had a
oh my
bad
god,
movie? I feel like he just doesn't make
never.
bad movies.
I
Between
I
his
think
voice
you could
acting
make
and
the
not, I'm like, dude,
argument
you're great.
that maybe Birds of Prey was a mistake, but like even that
Oh, see,
isn't
I
terrible.
yeah, you've seen it, right?
I haven't actually. I've only heard general consensus of it's not that good.
It's okay. It's not that good, but like it's fairly fun. It's fine, but I wouldn't call it a bad movie. And especially his
I mean, from
part,
what I've
I
heard,
would not call his
it's 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 just kind of in your face constantly.
a little bit. And like that could be the next episode. We could watch that. I'd be fine watching that. Uh, Harley Quinn does a narration over the whole time, and I don't know if I love it.
Harley
Either
Harley
way,
Quinn is
we could.
fun. Margot Robbie's Harley
She
Quinn is
is,
fun, but I
yes,
don't want 90 minutes straight of Harley Quinn talking in my ear. I feel like that accent would drive me up a wall.
a little bit, yes. Should we maybe plan on watching that next?
So we always say that, and then we choose something different for the next
That's
time.
fine.
Like last time with
It's at
National
least
Treasure, we're like, oh, we're gonna watch the second one, and then we're gonna be like, no, we're gonna watch Pinocchio. Which, fun fact, if you're
that's fine.
listening,
That's
um,
fine.
this was one of the first things we thought of to review, and then we had scheduling and mic issues. Then we ended up doing other things. So I'm glad we finally have gotten back around to doing this.
Yeah, I'm glad we at least
Just to say
finished
that
it.
I've
I
watched
really
it.
exactly. I don't love starting something and not finishing it, and to
I
say at
agree.
least that I've seen it. That way, if someone references or anything like that, I'm like, oh, at least I know what they're talking about.
So why don't we watch um, the second National Treasure in person over the weekend, and then on our own time we can watch Birds of Prey.
Okay, that's acceptable. I can do that. That sounds good to
Yeah,
me.
because I mean we're gonna have a long weekend anyway, so we'll have the time.
Long weekend.
Monday's a national holiday.
Oh, I get Mondays off anyway.
Oh, Monday's Labor Day.
Okay.
So
All right.
I will
Yeah.
have the time that you have every week.
Yeah, but you don't work Saturdays, do you?
I suppose not. All right. So
Either way,
closing thoughts. Anything that you want to say that we haven't said?
I would say maybe if you've listened to any of this or if you discover us and then you go through the episodes and hear this, you can hopefully hear that yes, it's not 100% fine tuned yet, but every episode we're kind of trying to figure it out more.
I
We're
feel like
probably
every
going to get a
episode
little more
we've nailed down something and then figured out something else we need to nail down the next time.
sure if that's the next thing is a more concrete schedule of what we see and actually sticking to it, or having
Yes,
an
I
intro and
feel
an
like it
outro that
is.
you guys can recognize, or uh, knowing what we're going to talk about with kind of the same like template of stuff we want to discuss, or have a genre that we want to cover. Either way, whatever. I'm just saying that like yes, it's not 100% yet, but that's fine. That's just the growing pains of figuring it out. uh, I'd say go watch Pinocchio and obviously make your own opinion if you want. If you're thinking maybe that doesn't sound like a super fun time, that's fine. There's so many other different movies
Better
out there to
things you could do with
watch.
your time.
Potentially. Uh,
And if
yeah.
you decide to go out and watch this yourself and want to tell us about it, you can find us on Spotify, and you can also find us on Instagram uh,
Yep.
under our name, which I think is the same.
Yep. It's the movie underscore bros. Uh, yeah,
We're
we'll
gonna
try
start
to start posting there
posting
about
our links,
episodes and stuff
posting
like
links
that.
to the Spotify episodes, and
Hmm.
maybe I'll be working up some kind of header images for that because I like to do art in my spare time, so I can tinker around and make episodes specific titles for that.
Yeah.
So
Anything
give
else
us a
you want to add
like,
before we
give
close?
us a
Yeah. Okay.
follow, do all those
Oh,
engagement actions,
sure.
and join us
Yeah.
next week for another movie
Either
going experience.
National Treasure or maybe Birds of Prey, or knowing us, probably a third movie we haven't talked about yet. So
Absolutely.
this has been Duncan and Hayden Scott. This has been the Movie Bros podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Talk to you later.